The old man was sitting in his wooden chair long before the evening fully arrived. The chair made a soft, tired sound when he leaned back, as if it too had lived a long life. Nothing important was happening. Nothing needed to happen. Outside the small window, the sky was slowly changing its color, moving from pale blue to something softer, something slower. The old man noticed it without thinking too much about it. He had learned over many years that some things were better observed quietly. He rested his hands on his knees. They felt warm, familiar. He took a slow breath in through his nose and let it out gently, without effort. The room was simple. A lamp in the corner gave off a dim yellow light. A small table stood nearby, holding nothing more than a closed book he had already read many times before. The old man did not feel the need to open it again. Instead, he listened. He listened to the soft hum of the room, the distant sound of air moving somewhere far away, the quiet, comfortable stillness that only comes when the day is finally letting go. He thought briefly about the many evenings he had spent like this. Not special evenings, just ordinary ones. Those were always his favorite. His breathing stayed slow and steady. Each breath felt unimportant, and that made it perfect. The old man gently closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again, just enough to see the soft glow of the lamp. He felt no rush, no pressure. The night had plenty of time. Somewhere deep inside, a calm feeling settled in, like a blanket being placed carefully over tired thoughts. And as the quiet evening continued, the old man remained there, resting, breathing, and letting the world become slower, and slower, and slower. The night was only just beginning. The old man remained in his chair as the evening quietly moved forward. Time did not rush him. It never did anymore. The light in the room seemed softer now, as if it understood the hour. The lamp did not flicker or buzz. It simply existed, offering its gentle glow without asking for attention. The old man shifted slightly, just enough to feel comfortable again. The movement was slow, careful, unnecessary, yet pleasant. He listened to his breathing. In and out. Each breath felt like a small wave, rolling in and then drifting back again. There was no need to control it. His body already knew exactly what to do. Outside, the world was growing quieter. Not silent, just calmer. Somewhere far away, a sound passed briefly through the air, then disappeared. The old man did not try to identify it. He had learned that naming things was not always important. His thoughts wandered gently, like leaves floating on still water. He remembered a time when evenings felt shorter, when nights arrived too quickly and mornings came too soon. Back then, rest was something to chase. Now rest came to him on its own. The chair supported his back in a familiar way. The wooden arms felt smooth beneath his hands, shaped by years of quiet use. He lightly pressed his fingers against them, feeling their solid presence. Nothing hurt. Nothing demanded attention. The old man's eyes slowly grew heavier, not because he was tired, but because they no longer needed to stay open so wide. He blinked once, then again, each blink lasting just a little longer than the last. The room did not change, and that was comforting. He allowed his shoulders to relax further, letting them sink down naturally. His jaw loosened. His face softened. There was no expression to hold anymore. The night continued its steady arrival. With every slow breath, the world felt more distant, and at the same time, more gentle. The old man did not try to follow his thoughts. He simply let them pass, one by one, without stopping any of them. And as time moved quietly forward, the calm settled deeper, spreading through the room, through the chair, through the old man himself. The evening was no longer arriving. It had arrived. The old man did not notice when his breathing slowed. It happened naturally, without effort. Each breath became softer, lighter, as if it barely touched the air before returning again. His chest rose and fell in a gentle rhythm, steady and unhurried. The room felt warmer now, not in temperature but in presence, as if the walls themselves were aware of his calm and chose to hold it gently. The lamp continued to glow, unchanged. It asked nothing. It demanded nothing. It simply stayed. The old man's hands rested loosely, fingers slightly curled, no tension left in them. The small muscles that once worked so hard had finally learned the comfort of stillness. He thought briefly of a road he once walked many times, not clearly, not sharply, just the feeling of it, the way the ground felt beneath his feet, the quiet sense of moving forward without needing to rush. That feeling returned now, moving without moving. His eyelids lowered halfway, then a little more. The world behind them became soft and dim, like looking through morning fog. Shapes faded, edges disappeared. Nothing needed focus anymore. Somewhere deep within, a sense of safety settled in. The kind that does not come from locks or lights, but from familiarity. From knowing that, for this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. The old man adjusted his head slightly against the back of the chair. The movement was slow and instinctive, guided by comfort alone. When he stopped, his neck felt supported, balanced. He exhaled. Long.
Slow.
Easy. The sound of his breath blended into the quiet of the room, until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Time continued to pass, but it no longer mattered how much. The old man allowed his thoughts to loosen further. They no longer formed complete ideas. They became fragments, soft impressions, gentle echoes, fading almost as soon as they appeared. There was no effort to remember, no effort to plan. Only this moment, the chair, the light,
The breath.
With every passing second, the space around him felt wider, calmer, more distant. The night wrapped itself gently around the house, around the room, around the old man's quiet presence. And as stillness deepened, it became clear that rest was no longer approaching. It was already here. The old man no longer felt the chair beneath him in any sharp way. It was still there, supporting him, but it had faded into something softer, something that no longer demanded attention. His breathing found a new depth now, not heavier, just fuller. Each inhale arrived calmly, stayed for a brief moment, then left without hurry. Each exhale carried away something small, a thought, a tension, a leftover trace of the day. The room felt distant, as if it had taken a small step back to give him space. The walls, the ceiling, the corners, all of it seemed quieter than before. Even silence had slowed. His face softened completely. The lines shaped by years of expression rested gently, no longer holding stories, no longer carrying weight. His jaw relaxed, his forehead smoothed. Nothing needed guarding anymore. Somewhere between awareness and rest, the old man noticed a sensation of gentle sinking. Not downward, not falling, just settling. Like being placed carefully into still water and feeling it rise around you. Safe, held, unmoving. The mind, once busy with layers of memory and meaning, began to thin. Thoughts no longer connected. They drifted independently, like clouds passing through a wide night sky. One would appear, pause, and quietly dissolve. He did not follow them. There was no need. The soft glow of the lamp blurred slightly, its edges losing definition. Light became warmth. Warmth became comfort. The old man's shoulders dropped just a little more, releasing the last place where effort still lingered. His arms felt heavy now, pleasantly so, as if gravity itself had grown kinder. Another long breath left him, and with it went the sense of time. Minutes no longer mattered. Seconds did not announce themselves. The night expanded gently, creating room for rest to deepen without interruption. The old man's eyelids closed fully now, not forced, not decided, simply because they were ready. Behind them, darkness was not empty. It was calm, it was soft. It carried no images, no demands, no urgency. Just space. His awareness narrowed, settling inward, like a flame lowering itself to a steady glow. Quiet did not surround him anymore. It lived inside him. And in that quiet, the old man rested, deeply, naturally, as if sleep had been waiting patiently all along. The old man no longer felt where his body ended and the chair began. There was no clear boundary now, only comfort, spread evenly, quietly. Breathing continued on its own. Slow, natural, unnoticed. Each breath seemed to happen somewhere far away, as if the body had learned how to rest without asking the mind for permission. The room faded further into the background. Sounds, if there were any, passed through without leaving a trace. They arrived soft and left softer. Nothing held attention. The old man's hands rested loosely, fingers slightly curved, as though they had finally been told there was nothing left to hold. Muscles released their long memory of effort. Even the heart felt calmer, steady, patient, unhurried. Inside the mind, space widened. Thoughts no longer came as sentences. They arrived as fragments, gentle impressions with no meaning attached. A color without a name, a feeling without a story. Each one floated briefly, then slipped away. There was no attempt to remember, no reason to understand. The old man's awareness drifted lower now, like mist settling into a quiet valley. The sense of I am here softened into something simpler, just presence without identity. No past, no future, only this slow, comfortable now. Warmth spread gently through his chest and down his arms, as if the body itself were sighing in relief. Legs felt heavy, grounded, peacefully still. Gravity became a friend. The darkness behind his closed eyes deepened, not thick, not heavy, but smooth and endless, like a night sky without stars, inviting rest rather than thought. Time loosened its grip. Moments stretched, then dissolved. There was no beginning to the quiet, and no expectation of an end. The old man drifted, not into sleep yet, but close enough to feel its presence. Like standing at the edge of a calm lake, knowing that stepping forward would be effortless. Nothing pulled him back. Nothing pushed him forward. And in that perfect balance, rest grew deeper, steadier, and more complete. The old man no longer noticed the passing of time. Seconds and minutes lost their meaning, dissolving into a single, continuous calm. Breathing was so gentle now it felt like the room itself was breathing for him. In and out, slowly, quietly. The body had become heavy in the best possible way, as if sinking into a perfectly shaped space made only for rest. No pressure, no strain, just support. The mind followed. Thoughts slowed to a crawl, then softened into faint echoes. They appeared without urgency, without direction, and faded before they could fully form. Nothing needed attention. The old man's awareness drifted like a feather on still air, not falling, not rising, simply suspended in peace. Even the sense of listening changed. Sounds were no longer separate events. They blended into a single, distant hush, like waves heard from far away, steady and harmless. Behind closed eyes, darkness grew smoother, deeper. Not empty, but full of quiet potential. A space where nothing had to happen. The edges of the body blurred. Arms felt warm and distant. Legs felt grounded and still. The face softened completely, jaw loose, forehead smooth. There was no effort to relax anymore. Relaxation was happening by itself. The old man floated closer to sleep, not crossing the line, but resting right at its edge. The place where awareness thins and comfort takes over. Here, thoughts lose their language, feelings lose their labels. Only sensation remains, gentle, neutral, calm. The mind learned something important in this space, that rest does not need control. It simply arrives. Each breath carried him deeper, not downward, but inward, into a quiet center where nothing disturbed him. The outside world faded further. Responsibilities, names, memories, all loosened their grip and slipped away. There was only stillness now. Wide, soft, safe, and sleep waited patiently nearby, ready whenever the old man chose to let go completely. The old man was no longer trying to sleep, and because of that, sleep began to come closer on its own. Breathing moved so softly now that it barely felt like movement at all. Each breath blended into the next, smooth and unbroken, like a slow river with no beginning and no end. The body rested completely, not as a decision, but as a fact. Muscles that once held tiny tensions had quietly released them. Shoulders rested where they were meant to be. Hands lay warm and still. Even the smallest muscles around the eyes let go, allowing darkness to feel gentle instead of heavy. The mind followed the body's lead. Thoughts no longer arrived in full sentences. They came as fragments, half images, soft impressions, and then dissolved before becoming real ideas. There was no need to understand them, no need to follow them. They simply appeared and faded. Time thinned out here. Moments stretched and blended together until it became impossible to say how long he had been resting in this calm. It didn't matter. Nothing waited for him anywhere else. The old man drifted through memories that had no emotion attached to them. Places without names, paths without destinations, light without source. Each image felt distant, as if seen through warm fog. The sense of self softened too. He was not thinking about who he was or what he had been. He was simply present, a quiet awareness resting inside a peaceful body. The boundary between waking and sleeping grew thinner with every breath. Sounds faded even further, becoming a low, steady hush that felt comforting rather than distracting. Silence was no longer empty. It was full, like a soft blanket covering everything. The body felt gently anchored, as though held by the surface beneath it, safe and unmoving. Nothing could disturb this moment. Even if something tried, it would arrive too softly to matter. The old man rested right at the doorway of sleep, not pushed, not pulled, simply allowed. And in this space, the mind learned again how natural rest truly is. No effort, no control, just drifting, quietly, peacefully, closer and closer to sleep. The moment stretched gently, as if the night itself had decided not to move forward. The old man remained exactly where he was, yet something within him began to loosen. Not break, not fade, just loosen. Like a knot that had been held too tightly for too long. Breathing slowed even more now. In and out. Each breath moved through him like a slow tide, washing away the last traces of effort. The chest rose without instruction. The shoulders rested without being told. The jaw softened. The tongue rested quietly. The body no longer asked questions. Thoughts still appeared, but they had lost their sharpness. They no longer arrived fully formed. Instead, they drifted in half shapes, unfinished ideas that dissolved before they could become anything real. Nothing needed solving. Nothing needed remembering. The old man felt himself resting inside the pause between thoughts, a place so quiet that even silence felt unnecessary. His awareness gently pulled inward, away from the edges of the world. Sounds from far away became distant and unimportant, like echoes heard underwater. Even the idea of listening slowly disappeared. The sense of time began to blur. Minutes no longer followed one another. They overlapped, softened, and blended together. The night was no longer a sequence. It was a single, endless moment. His body felt heavier now, but not uncomfortable. Heavy in the way a blanket feels heavy, in the way safety feels heavy. Supported from beneath, held from all sides. There was no need to move. Images began to rise behind closed eyes. Not dreams yet, just gentle impressions, shadows without form, a horizon without distance, movement without direction. Each image floated by without asking for attention. The mind watched without effort, without attachment. Somewhere deep inside, a doorway opened quietly. It did not creak. It did not announce itself. It simply existed, wide, welcoming, patient. This was the place where waking gently steps aside. Breathing became slower still. Longer exhales carried the mind downward, deeper into comfort. The space around awareness grew vast, yet completely safe. There were no edges here, no corners, nothing to bump into. Only softness. The old man drifted further, carried by a calm older than thought itself, a calm that had always been waiting. Sleep did not rush toward him. It waited, and he drifted closer. Without trying, without knowing, exactly as he was meant to. Nothing pulled him forward. Nothing pushed him back. The old man simply floated, not upward, not downward, but inward, as if the space inside him had grown larger than the space around him. Breathing was now barely noticeable. Not because it had stopped, but because it no longer needed attention. The body knew exactly what to do. It always had. With every slow breath out, the edges of awareness softened. The line between thought and rest blurred until it no longer mattered where one ended and the other began. His hands felt distant now, warm and heavy, resting somewhere far away. His feet felt even farther, as if they belonged to another time entirely. The body was still present, but gently forgotten. This forgetting felt good. Thoughts arrived less often now, and when they did, they passed through like clouds drifting across a dark sky, thin, quiet, leaving no trace behind. No memory held him. No plan called him back. The mind rested in a wide-open stillness. The darkness behind closed eyes deepened, but it was not empty. It was full of calm, full of space, full of a gentle knowing that nothing was required. The night wrapped itself around him more completely now, not like a blanket placed on top, but like warmth that rises from within. A quiet, steady warmth that told the body it was safe to let go. Time slipped again. Moments folded into each other until they no longer stood apart. There was no before this moment, and no after it either. Only a slow, continuous now. The old man felt himself settling into this now, sinking not downward but inward, like resting into a perfectly shaped hollow made just for him. The world outside grew faint. If there were sounds, they no longer mattered. If there were thoughts, they no longer stayed. Everything unnecessary gently stepped aside. The mind found a rhythm, not a rhythm of thinking, but a rhythm of resting, a slow, steady pulse of awareness that required no effort to maintain. Somewhere, far beyond the need to understand, sleep began to gather. Not sudden, not heavy. Soft, patient, certain. It did not arrive all at once. It spread slowly, like dusk spreading across the land. First touching the edges, then moving inward, until everything rested under the same quiet sky. The old man did not reach for sleep. Sleep reached for him, and he allowed it, without resistance, without thought, without knowing, held gently in a place where waking slowly fades and rest takes over completely. The night continued without asking permission. It did not rush. It did not wait. It simply remained, steady, calm, endless. The old man was no longer aware of sitting. The idea of a bench, of a body, of a place, had softened into something distant and unimportant. What remained was a gentle sense of being, quiet and wide. Breathing moved slowly, deeply, as if guided by something older than thought. Each breath out carried away another layer of effort. Each breath in arrived already calm. The mind no longer searched for anything. There were no questions left to answer, no memories asking to be replayed, no tomorrow waiting to be prepared for. Thoughts, once busy and loud, now appeared rarely, and when they did, they had no strength. They drifted in slowly, paused, then faded away before they could become words. Silence settled more firmly now. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that feels complete. A silence that holds rather than removes. A silence that feels like being gently cradled. The darkness behind closed eyes grew deeper and smoother. It had no shape, no edge, no beginning or end. Just a soft, endless space where nothing needed to happen. The old man's awareness spread into that space. It felt as if the mind had exhaled one final time, releasing the need to stay alert. The quiet that followed was natural and welcome. Time lost its meaning entirely. Seconds did not pass. Minutes did not exist. There was only a slow, continuous rest. Calm resting on calm. The body, now fully relaxed, sank into perfect stillness. Muscles released what they had been holding for years. Joints softened. The face relaxed into a peaceful expression without effort. Even the idea of listening faded. If there were sounds, they blended into the background of nothingness. If there were sensations, they floated without demand. Sleep moved closer, not as a sudden drop, but as a gentle closing in, like curtains being drawn slowly across a darkened room. The mind welcomed it. There was no fear, no hesitation, no need to hold on, just a quiet acceptance. A knowing that this is where rest becomes complete. The old man drifted deeper now, guided by the natural pull of sleep. Thoughts no longer knocked at the door. Awareness softened, thinned, and slowly dissolved. Nothing followed him. Nothing was needed. Only this calm descent, this gentle letting go, this peaceful falling into rest, where sleep finally takes hold and holds on. Sleep had already arrived, but it did not announce itself. It came quietly, like a fog that rolls in without sound, softening everything it touches. The old man no longer noticed the moment of crossing. Awareness thinned so gently that there was no clear line between being awake and being asleep. Breathing continued on its own, slow, even, effortless. Each breath seemed to come from deeper within, as if the body had remembered how to rest the way it once did long ago. The rise and fall of the chest felt distant now, like waves seen from far away. The mind was no longer forming pictures. No stories, no worries, no planning. Only faint impressions remained, like shadows without shape, and even those slowly dissolved into the darkness. The night felt wider here, not darker but deeper, a space where nothing pressed in and nothing pulled away, a place where the mind could finally stop holding itself together. The old man drifted further. There was no sense of direction anymore, no forward or backward, just a gentle floating, suspended in a calm that had no center. Thoughts tried once or twice to return, habits from another time, but they arrived without energy. They faded before they could become anything meaningful. The body rested completely now. The jaw loosened. The shoulders sank. The hands lay heavy and still. Even the heart seemed to slow, beating with a calm confidence, steady and sure. Each beat was quiet reassurance. Everything is fine. Everything is settled. Sleep deepened, not suddenly, but layer by layer, like sinking into warm water where the surface disappears above and the world grows quieter with every inch downward. Sounds became muffled, sensations blurred, awareness softened even more. The old man no longer knew where he was, and it did not matter. There was no need to remember, no need to return. This place required nothing. Time was gone now. No past, no future. Only this continuous gentle rest unfolding endlessly. The darkness behind closed eyes felt comforting, familiar. It wrapped around awareness like a blanket, holding it safely, allowing it to drift wherever it wished. Sleep was no longer approaching. Sleep had taken over, and it held the old man gently, without pressure, without demand, guiding him deeper into a rest so complete that even the idea of waking felt far away. Here, in this quiet depth, nothing could disturb him. Nothing needed to. Only slow breathing, steady calm, and the endless night, holding him perfectly still. Sleep was no longer something that happened. It was something that existed. The old man had passed beyond the point of noticing it. There was no awareness left to say, "I am sleeping now." That thought belonged to another layer, far above this one. Breathing moved like a quiet machine that required no supervision. Each breath flowed in, paused softly, then flowed out again, smooth and unbroken. The body knew exactly what to do. The mind had gone still. Not empty, but quiet in a deeper way. Like a lake at night, untouched by wind, reflecting nothing because there was nothing left to reflect. There were no images, no memories, no questions. Only a gentle presence, barely noticeable, like a warmth that does not ask to be felt. The darkness felt thicker now, but not heavy. It was comforting, padded, safe. It wrapped around awareness the way deep water wraps around a sinking stone, without force, without urgency. The old man drifted. Downward had no meaning here, neither did upward. Movement existed without direction, floating without effort, resting without position. The body continued to release itself. Muscles that once held tension finally forgot why they were holding it all. The neck softened, the back settled. Even the smallest movements inside the body slowed, aligning into a single calm rhythm. Time dissolved completely. Seconds did not follow seconds anymore. There was no sequence, no order. Everything existed at once, gently overlapping, endlessly calm, the heartbeat steadily, quietly confident. Each beat echoed like a soft reminder that everything was working exactly as it should. No dreams had formed yet. This was the space before dreams, the deepest layer, where the mind resets, where the body repairs itself, where awareness rests without identity. Here nothing could intrude. No sound could reach this place. No thought could survive here. No memory could demand attention. Even the idea of waking felt distant, unreal, like something imagined long ago. The old man rested inside this depth as if he had always belonged here. There was no effort in staying. No fear of falling. No need to return. Sleep held him completely now, wide, endless, gentle, and it would continue to hold him. Breath after breath. Beat after beat. The night stretched on, unbroken and peaceful, carrying him deeper into a rest that had no bottom, only softness, stillness, and calm. There was no clear moment when dreams began. They did not arrive suddenly. They seeped in. At first, there was only softness, a faint shift in texture, like fabric changing under gentle pressure. The old man did not notice it happening. Awareness was too relaxed to track transitions. Breathing remained slow, even effortless. Somewhere deep inside, the mind began to loosen its grip on logic. not by force, but by forgetting it ever existed. Structure faded, order softened, meaning thinned out until it was no longer needed. Darkness became spacious. It was no longer a single layer, but many, stacked quietly, one resting on another. Each layer deeper than the last, each one calmer. The body rested heavier now, as if gravity had gently increased. Not uncomfortable, reassuring, like being tucked in by something larger than thought. A faint image almost appeared. Not clear enough to be seen, not strong enough to be remembered. It drifted past like a shadow behind closed eyes, leaving no trace, no demand for attention. The mind allowed it to pass without following. That was important. Following would wake something. Letting go allowed sleep to deepen. The old man remained still, held by the rhythm of his own existence. Heart steady, breath flowing, muscles relaxed beyond instruction. Time had no edges here. It did not move forward. It did not move backward. It simply spread outward, wide and quiet, like fog rolling across an empty field. Thoughts tried once more to form, faint, incomplete, but they dissolved before becoming words. The mind no longer knew how to finish a sentence. And that was perfect. This was the place where rest became repair, where the nervous system softened its grip, where the body remembered how to feel safe without explanation. A deeper warmth settled in the chest. A deeper calm spread through the limbs. The old man drifted closer to dreaming, but did not cross yet. He hovered at the threshold, the quiet doorway between nothing and something. Here there was no story yet, only preparation. The mind stretched slowly, lazily, like a cat settling into sleep. Ready, but unhurried. The night continued to hold everything together. Nothing rushed. Nothing changed suddenly. And somewhere inside this stillness, dreams waited patiently, knowing they would be welcomed soon. The crossing happened quietly. There was no signal, no announcement, no moment to mark. One breath flowed into the next, and somewhere between them, the old man slipped past the edge of waking without noticing it had disappeared. Sleep did not pull him in. It received him. The world behind his eyes softened further, becoming less like darkness and more like depth. A wide, gentle space opened. Not empty, but calm enough to hold anything without effort. The body no longer felt separate. Hands, shoulders, legs, they stopped reporting their positions. Weight dissolved into support. The bench, the ground, the earth beneath, all of it blended into one quiet foundation. Breathing slowed again, not by intention, but by instinct. In, out. Each breath slightly longer than the one before. Thought had fully released its grip now. Ideas did not form, questions did not arise. Even the idea of sleep faded away. There was only experience, unfolding without commentary. A dream began to assemble itself, not as images yet, but as sensation. A feeling of familiarity, a sense of being somewhere known, even if unnamed. It was comforting, like returning to a place visited many times before, though never remembered clearly afterward. Sound existed here, but only faintly, not noise, more like the suggestion of sound. A distant echo of something peaceful, too soft to define. The mind accepted it without curiosity. Time continued to lose meaning. Minutes did not pass. Hours did not follow. Instead, everything rested in a single extended moment, wide enough to contain rest, memory, and release all at once. The old man's face remained relaxed, jaw loose, brow smooth, no tension left to resolve. The nervous system had finally been given permission to stand down. Deep inside, repair began. Muscles softened further. Breath nourished without effort. The mind reset itself gently, like dust settling after still air. The dream deepened but stayed slow. Nothing dramatic appeared, Nothing demanded attention. This was not a dream to watch. It was a dream to float within. The kind that carries you without direction. The kind that leaves no sharp edges behind. Sleep had fully taken over now, and it held him carefully, without rush, without weight, without end. The dream did not begin with pictures. It began with motion. A slow, steady sense of drifting, not forward, not downward, simply through. As if the old man were being carried gently by something that knew exactly where to go, even though no destination was required. There was no ground beneath him now, no bench, no night air, only movement without effort. The darkness around him grew softer, warmer, like a blanket that adjusts itself perfectly without being touched. Within it, faint shapes began to form, not clear enough to focus on, not sharp enough to demand meaning. The mind did not try to interpret them. It accepted. Breathing continued, slow and deep, but no longer felt connected to the body. Each breath seemed to happen on its own, guided by something older than thought. In, out. The rhythm stayed steady, wide, unbroken. A memory floated nearby. Not a specific one, but the feeling of safety tied to many memories at once. The sense of being protected, of being allowed to rest without needing to remain alert. The dream expanded gently. There were hints of light now, not bright, not directional, just a soft glow that existed everywhere at once. It did not come from above or below. It simply was. The old man drifted through it without resistance. Time had fully dissolved. There was no awareness of how long this state had lasted, and no interest in finding out. The mind had released its habit of measuring, comparing, checking. Nothing was missing here. Nothing needed to be added. Even the sense of self began to loosen its shape, not disappearing, just becoming lighter, less defined, like a name written in water. Thoughts no longer arrived as sentences. They came as sensations, then faded before forming. Peace did not feel exciting. It felt complete. Somewhere within the dream, a quiet understanding settled in. This space would remain as long as needed. There was no urgency to wake, no pressure to move on. Sleep was no longer a state. It was the environment, and the old man rested within it effortlessly, carried forward by the calm itself, deeper into a night that asked for nothing and gave rest in return. The drifting continued, but now it felt slower. Not because it was stopping, but because there was nowhere left to rush toward. The calm around the old man thickened, like warm water holding the body perfectly in place. Every sensation softened further, edges dissolving into comfort. Even the idea of movement became optional. Breathing remained, deep, quiet, unforced. Each breath arrived like a familiar visitor, stayed briefly, then left without being noticed. There was no effort in letting go. The dream space widened again, stretching gently outward, as if making more room for rest. Darkness blended with a muted glow, creating a place where eyes were no longer needed. Nothing here asked to be seen. The body, wherever it was, had fully released its weight. Muscles that once held tension now forgot they were ever meant to hold anything at all. Shoulders sank into nothing. Hands loosened beyond awareness. Even the heart seemed to beat more slowly, not weaker but calmer, like it had remembered an older, steadier rhythm. Time had stopped behaving like time. Moments did not follow one another. They simply existed together, overlapping peacefully. Thoughts tried to rise once, softly, but finding no surface to land on, they faded away on their own. There was no struggle, no pushing. The mind had learned that it was safe to be empty. Somewhere far beneath consciousness, a feeling settled in. The feeling of being exactly where one is meant to be, with no improvements required. No past waited to be reviewed. No future needed planning. Only this endless, gentle pause. The dream did not deepen suddenly. It deepened naturally while, like night growing darker without ever noticing the change. Rest became heavier yet lighter at the same time, and the old man drifted onward, wrapped in a silence so complete that even silence itself seemed to disappear, leaving only sleep, smooth, steady, and unbroken. The stillness did not change. It simply settled deeper. What once felt like drifting now felt like being gently held in place, supported from all sides by something calm and endless. There was no edge to this feeling, no point where it began or ended. Breathing continued on its own, slow and steady, as if the body had remembered how to rest long before thoughts ever existed. Each breath moved through without asking for attention. The old man was no longer aware of his position. Sitting, lying, floating, none of these ideas mattered anymore. The body had softened past shape, past posture, past effort. Even gravity seemed to loosen its grip. The quiet around him grew fuller, not heavier. It carried warmth without heat, darkness without fear. It felt familiar, like a place visited many times in childhood dreams, long before words were needed. Nothing moved here, yet nothing felt stuck. Time dissolved further. Seconds did not pass. Minutes did not form. The idea of waiting disappeared completely. There was nothing to wait for. Thoughts did not arrive anymore. Not because they were blocked, but because there was no space for them to land. The mind rested the way water rests in a still lake, smooth and untouched by wind. Any ripple that tried to form faded before becoming real. Somewhere deep inside, the nervous system relaxed its final grip. Signals quieted. Alerts switched off. The body understood that it was safe enough to stop checking, safe enough to sleep deeply. Muscles melted into comfort. The face softened completely, jaw unclenched, brows smoothed. Even the smallest tensions, the ones usually unnoticed, quietly released. The silence was no longer something surrounding him. It became something within him. There was no separation now between rest and awareness. They blended together into one gentle state, calm without effort, presence without thought. Sleep did not arrive suddenly. It arrived the way evening becomes night, so slowly that the change cannot be seen. And in this deep, quiet layer beneath everything else, the old man continued to rest, carried forward by nothing at all, supported perfectly by the simple act of letting go. Nothing needed to happen anymore. The quiet had become complete, not as an absence, but as a presence, something gentle and steady, holding everything exactly as it was meant to be. The old man no longer noticed his breathing. It continued, of course, but without observation, without counting, without meaning. Air moved in and out the way tides move, automatically, endlessly, without instruction. The body had stopped reporting back to the mind. There was no awareness of arms or legs, no sense of weight or balance. The idea of having a body faded into something distant and unimportant, like a memory that no longer needed to be recalled. Even the sense of I softened. Thoughts did not return. They had nothing left to say. The space around him felt wide and open, yet deeply personal, as if it existed only for this moment of rest. Darkness remained, but it was smooth and comforting, like a blanket pulled gently over awareness. Time was gone now. Not slowed, not paused. Gone. There was no before this moment, and there would be no after. The present stretched gently in all directions, wide enough to hold everything without effort. The nervous system settled into its deepest rhythm. Heartbeat steady, muscles quiet, mind completely unguarded. The final layer of alertness dissolved on its own. No control was needed. The body knew exactly how to sleep. Somewhere far beneath consciousness, A sense of safety anchored everything in place. Nothing could interrupt this rest. Nothing needed attention. The world outside no longer reached this deep. The old man drifted without drifting, rested without trying. Sleep was no longer something approaching. It was already here, wrapped around every sensation, smoothing every edge, filling every empty space with calm. Awareness thinned until it became almost transparent, light enough to disappear completely. And in this place where effort no longer existed, where even rest became effortless, the old man remained, fully surrendered, fully safe, carried gently into the deepest, quietest sleep. The darkness wrapped itself closer, not like a cover, but like a presence that had always been there, quietly supporting the world beneath it. The old man felt nothing pressing, nothing moving, nothing calling for attention. Even the faintest whisper of thought had vanished, leaving a stillness that was more alive than noise could ever be. Every part of him had surrendered to rest. Muscles relaxed into the earth, bones heavy but free, skin soft, eyes closed. The hands rested loosely, and even the fingers seemed to float, weightless, unmeasured. The mind did not wander. It did not drift. It simply ceased to narrate. Time, once a sequence of events, had dissolved. There was no morning, no night, no ticking clock. There was only the space around him, vast, infinite, comforting. Somewhere in that silence there was a sense of home, though not a place or a building, not a memory or a person. It was the home of rest, of surrender, of being entirely held without condition. Breath became a rhythm so subtle that noticing it seemed unnecessary. In and out, yet even these motions were beyond attention. They simply were. The body, untethered from expectation, found its own perfect balance. There was no tension, no anticipation, no struggle. Each heartbeat echoed softly, like distant drums beneath the surface of everything. The old man did not sleep in the usual sense. He existed in a space beyond sleep, a quiet dimension where the mind, body, and time all aligned into a single, harmonious experience. Every sound, every shadow, every memory had softened, settling into the corners of the night, leaving a calm that stretched without end. Even the concept of self had thinned, becoming almost transparent. There was no I, only presence, only quiet, only rest. And in this perfect stillness, the night stayed, patient, unbroken, carrying him deeper into the gentle infinity of sleep. No thought, no worry, no effort. Only the vast, soft quiet holding him completely. The night had settled fully now, thicker than before, yet gentle, like velvet draped around everything. Every leaf, every stone, every shadow had found its place, unmoving, undisturbed, perfectly aligned with the invisible rhythm of the universe. The old man no longer sensed the passage of time. Minutes, hours, days, all had blended into a single endless presence. He felt neither tired nor awake. He simply was, perfectly held by the quiet. Every breath became a tide, flowing without thought, in and out, without pause or notice. The body floated in a subtle weightlessness, supported by nothing and everything simultaneously. His mind, once full of wandering thoughts and memories, had emptied entirely. There was no worry, no longing, no anticipation. The usual boundaries of self had softened until they dissolved entirely into the darkness around him. There was no past demanding review. There was no future waiting to be reached. Only this moment, vast, infinite, serene, a pause so complete it felt eternal. Even the faintest sound, once distracting, had vanished. Silence was no longer an absence. It was a presence, a soft embrace surrounding every part of him. The stars above seemed closer, not far away in the sky, but woven into the very fabric of this stillness. Each one pulsed quietly, rhythmically, without urgency, as if to reassure that everything was exactly as it should be. He felt no need to move, no need to open his eyes, no need to exist in any way other than this calm, this quiet, this perfect, unbroken rest. Time, thought, and self had merged into a single experience, a vast, soft infinity that held him completely, yet lightly, without effort, without pressure. And as the night stretched endlessly, as all edges softened into the unknown, the old man remained there, resting in a quiet deeper than words could capture, enveloped in the gentle, infinite pause of existence itself. This was the perfect ending. No conclusion, no story left to tell, only the serene, endless quiet, carrying him beyond the world, beyond thought, beyond sleep itself. And that was enough.